Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this special masterclass, Turbocharging Employee Experience with IT Service Management. I'm Tian Wong, founder and host of the Big Idea CONNECTpreneur community, a global community of over 25,000 investors, founders, and business leaders around the world. I'm also CEO of Opus 8, which invests in BPO and CRM assets. And we also help companies and alternative investment managers raise money through our network of over 3,000 accredited private investors, angels, and family offices throughout the United States. Today's masterclass is scheduled for 60 minutes. It'll include plenty of time for question and answer. So if you have any questions for our instructors, please type them directly into the group chat, or you can private chat with our co-host and CONNECTpreneur community manager, Skylar, or you can just raise your hand after we start Q&A and ask the question yourself. This meeting will be recorded, so you can share it with colleagues and also go back and review it. Or if you joined us a little bit late, you'll be able to see it from the beginning. Really happy to have two amazing instructors today. We have George Kopsakoulis, who is an experienced technology professional with an extensive and diverse background of more than 20 years, helping organizations successfully transform and modernize ITSM platforms and increase adoption. And we have Harjinder Singh, who's an experienced service management professional, helping organizations with their digital transformation initiatives geared towards service management, employee, and digital experience. George and Harjinder are founders and principals of A&B Technologies, a consulting firm specialized in providing enterprise service management solutions and services. A&B's mission is to help customers digitize and automate their enterprise processes in a cost-effective manner. A&B offers industry-specific solutions in implementing several enterprise service management solutions, such as IT service management, IT asset management, HR service management, facilities management. And these services include, among other things, assessment and strategic roadmap definition, process design, implementation of enterprise service management platforms, and organizational change management services to improve adoption. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to Harjinder, who will get things started. Harjinder, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, T, and thank you, Sky, for coordinating this. And welcome everyone to this wonderful webinar or session about employee experience, right? So before we jump into, enhancing and turbocharging the employee experience, let's take a back seat a little bit and see what's happening in today's world and how this all started, right? So let's understand the world of work, how it changed and why it changed. So if you recall, couple of years back, when the pandemic started or hit the world, what was the normal that time? The normal was everyone went remote, other than healthcare workers, and salute to them for, doing all the great things that they did. Everyone else was working remote. Zoom and WebEx call fatigue was there. And employees at that time started looking at their priorities a little bit different, right? They started thinking about health. They started thinking about family. They started thinking about the company culture they worked in a more micro-focused way, right? So it was not just about I'm going to work. It was all about having the focus about family, health, the culture, the environment that they worked in, right? What followed was a great resignation wave, and that is still continuing. It's not over yet, right? And partly it's because of pandemic, partly it's because priorities of people have changed. Now let's look at a few key numbers here, and this data is coming straight from the labor turnover report. Just in 2021 alone, and within just US, 35 million Americans, they resigned from their jobs. What that means is, what that doesn't mean is they left and now they're just sitting at home, but definitely there was a turnover, right? They might have find a better job, or they might have even said that I'm done. I'm going to sit at home and think about my other priorities. But that's a huge number. If you compare with 2020, 2019, and previous years, this was probably one of the highest numbers. A recent survey that was done in the similar interest showed that about more than 25% of the employees actually mentioned that if the employer will ask them to come back to the office fully, they're going to quit and they're going to find something else. So coming back fully to the office is not an option for some of the employees. So we do need to keep that in mind when we think about what employee are looking for. And they're just questioning everything, whether it's not just about when to go for work, but even why to work and what type of work they want to do at the first place. Right. So at this stage, Sky, we have the poll.
Yeah, so I'll launch the poll for everyone. Make sure everyone can see it okay. And all of your answers will be confidential. We'll share the results, but it'll just show percentages, not names or anything. So feel free to answer.
So really the poll is, what is your current employee sentiment around workplace? Are they planning to come fully in person? They want to be fully remote, or is it a hybrid?
Perfect. Give it just one more minute. See just a few more results trickling in. Okay, I'll end this one and share the results.
All right. I'm not surprised at all. I'm actually surprised with a couple of other numbers. So hybrid 50%, and you will see the numbers in my next couple of slides, how this is resonating with the real world as well. And fully remote, that's again a huge number, 48%. All right, so with that, let's go to next slide. So this was a survey done back in 2021 by McKinsey, right? You all know McKinsey is one of the big management consulting firm. So they did a survey for pre-COVID and post-COVID in 3 different categories. Where does employee fits in, or what are their expectations from coming back to the office, fully remote or hybrid? As you can see, pre-COVID, 62% of the employees were okay to go to the office, and they were going to the office. 30% were hybrid and 8% were remote. Now, if you see in post-COVID, that number has drastically changed. 37% are only wanting to come back to the office fully. That's minus 25%. That's a huge number. And then more than 50%, they want some type of flexible working model, hybrid or whatever that is, that flexibility. They are looking for that flexibility. That's the key theme that we're going to be talking today. It's the flexibility that is important. And 11% are looking for fully remote. That's kind of surprising, but if you look at it in the hindsight, 11% of the people that you might think it's a lower number, but that also shows maybe that as humans, we are also a social animal, right? We like to interact with people. So some of us do want to go to the office maybe a couple of days here and there, right? So fully remote is not something what we are looking also. So it's the middle ground. So this is again a very good statistics around employee sentiment. Now we have the second poll, Sky.
Oh, sorry, it's muted. Okay, so the next one I'm launching right now. And same deal as the last one. We'll share the percentage results. Give it just a minute or so for everyone to get in their answer.
Yeah, and really the question here is which model your organization is implementing or planning to implement or has already implemented. Is it fully in person, fully remote, hybrid? What model are you trying to implement or have implemented?
Perfect. Give it just about 10 more seconds. I see a few more results coming in. Okay, and I'll share these results.
All right, same thing, right? So hybrid is the new normal, as we can see even from the survey. Very few fully in person, kind of in the middle, fully remote, and hybrid is becoming the new normal. All right, thank you for your response on the survey. All right, so as you could see even from your response, hybrid and flexible working model is the new normal, and this is here to stay. This is not just hopefully COVID will be fully over, and we can actually assume in some cases it's over, but what pandemic has done is it has told us to try a different model, and people like it. People are liking the new hybrid model because it still gets the job done, but it still gives them a good flexibility from work-life balance perspective, right? So this model is here to stay, believe it or not. There's actually another survey done by McKinsey where they say by 2030 the percentage of hybrid will going to be even more higher, right? So this model will going to be there, and we got to adapt to use this model. All right. So with this new normal of hybrid world, what is employee expecting from not just the world, but the company they work in, right? And this is, again, coming from those common themes and surveys. They're looking for three things from the employer. Number one, flexibility. It's not just working hours, but flexible working conditions, flexible work-life balance, and it's not just the 8 to 5 timing, right? They're looking for a few days to work from home, few days to work from the office, and giving enough time for their family, relatives, etc. Right? So that flexibility is key. They are definitely, this is the top one theme that if you look at any survey or news, you're going to see flexibility is the new thing that employees are looking. Second is the experience. Now, what pandemic did was, as you could see, digitization was kind of became a big wave. We started ordering from Amazon more. We started doing Uber Eats and Grubhub and you name it, right? The employee in this case, who is also externally a customer of these services, Amazon, Uber Eats, etc., now expect the same behavior within the company. Right? They actually, the company they work in, they expect you to give same behavior, same digital experience, what you provide to your customers, right? So it's almost like give me the same service that you give it to your customers as an employee, right? So that digital experience and employee experience and culture is becoming very, very important, especially with this with millennials, Gen Zs. Everyone is tech savvy, right? And no one want to work in a world where technology is not top notch. And last but not the least, there is transparency. They are looking from employer to be fully communicative when it comes to this flexibility and experience models, right? So they want their employers to communicate about the policies, when to come to the office, when not, to be very clear to build that trust, right? Again, there are a lot of other factors, the salary and whatnot, but majority of kind of soft expectations are flexibility, experience, and transparency. Now, before we jump into how this all relates to ITSM and how it can help you, improve the employee expectation, let's quickly look at what value does ITSM bring to business and employees and IT from employee experience standpoint, right? Overall, ITSM, if you look at it, it's nothing but end-to-end delivery of IT services to its customer. In this case, the customer is nothing but your employees, right? So IT service management helps you define and manage the services provided by IT in an efficient and cost-effective manner to its customer, in this case, employees. From business standpoint, it helps you reduce cost, helps operational efficiency because you have the processes defined. So, you can really count on operational efficiency there. From employee standpoint, given that, it improves your experience, it also enhances your productivity and business alignment. And from IT standpoint, and we all know, technology teams are always short of resources. So with ITSM, you can make the best use of your scarce IT resources. It can help you improve even the customer satisfaction. And last but not the least, it can help you remediate or resolve IT issues quickly and smoothly. With that, so we have one offer going on. First 7 people who will email us at info@anbtechnologies.com will actually get a free consultation with us. As part of the consultation, we are providing 2 things. Number one, we'll evaluate where do you stand in your IT service management maturity. And number 2, we will also provide you high-level recommendations into how to take it to the next level, right? So feel free to use it. Do send us an email. First 7 callers or first 7 emails will get the first, will get free 30 to 60 minutes consultation. With that, I'm going to hand it over to George, who is my colleague. partner of crime. He will take us from overview of ITSM as well as some of the benefits that we can achieve.
Hey everybody, George Kapsahillis. Let me just quickly share my screen and we'll get underway. So again, George Kapsahillis, thank you for joining the webinar. We appreciate it. Just a little bit about my day in life. I'm not sure about you guys, but I start my day by powering on my computer, logging in. I end my day by logging out of my computer, shutting down. But there's a catch to that as well. I seem to have this thing that seems to follow me everywhere I go. So I pretty much, spend weekends, nights, days, holidays. We're always connected. And I think we can all agree that technology is here to stay. It's become part of our lives, another appendage, if you will, and something that we all rely on, employees, as well as just regular day-to-day users of technology. So it's really important and impactful of how IT impacts productivity in the workplace, as well as home life. And also, the other thing to note is, our gender hit on it a little bit, it's important that we're in a world now, not only hybrid in and out of work, but personal device meeting corporate device. We need to have our personal experiences also follow us throughout the day, especially when we talk about hybrid, and especially when we talk about people that might, need their devices at different points in the day, and be able to work personal. Okay. So that being said, what is ITSM? I'm going to take us through get a little more into the details and the weeds of ITSM, what it is. Some of you may know, some of you may not. It's kind of just a brief overview. So ITSM is a group of processes. We're going to touch on 6 key processes that you see in the diagram. First is that service catalog. Harjinder kind of touched on it before. People are used to an Amazon-like experience. So in the workplace, they're also expecting a similar experience. ITSM can provide a service catalog, a portal, if you will, where users can go order IT goods or create IT issues or search knowledge or do whatever they have to do, and also be able to see and track where their orders are or where their issues may lie, right? So kind of a very simple self-service, I can support myself. I know where at any given time a certain order is in the fulfillment process, similar to Amazon. I want to know when that thing's going to drop on my doorstep via UPS, FedEx, anything else. I can track all that. The next process is incident management. Incident management's process to handle all break-fix IT issues. So it's a place where we manage IT, to restore service to the customer, to the firm, to the company, make sure that downtime is reduced to a minimum, it's an efficiency, as well as a way to track and restore issues as soon as possible. Change management is another process which is designed to understand and minimize risks while making changes to IT. So we might have an important financial system that's getting an upgrade or an overhaul, and we need to make changes to that system. We need to understand how that will impact business and users, and everyone else that's involved in that process, also how we roll back and mitigate if issues arise. Asset management, process of ensuring the IT assets are accounted for, deployed, maintained, upgraded, and disposed of when the time comes. We want to make sure that we have a good disposal process. So basically, put it simply, it's how we track the items that are valuable to your organization from an IT perspective. Knowledge is pretty much that. It's a process of gathering, analyzing, storing, sharing knowledge that's created within an IT service desk. And of course, like we do everything else, we wrap everything in reporting and KPIs. We need to trend and report on all these processes. And we need to track how well ITSM is servicing the company. Okay, so let's run through a couple of maybe real world examples of some of these processes to hopefully get a good, clear understanding of what they are and what their purpose is. So an incident would be something like, my example earlier today, my computer won't start. I can't start my day. That's a problem. It's an incident. It might be something like email is slow, or I'm not receiving email, or something's down I can't log into an application, or I'm getting some sort of error as I'm in an application, or I can't print. So incident, I always think of an incident as something that was working and now it's not working. Okay, so very clear sort of explanation of that. Request, could be, I need to replace my laptop, or I need an extra monitor, I want a printer, I want access to an application, I want to have software installed to my desktop so I can get to said application. I always think of request as something new, something an employee doesn't have, and IT needs to fulfill on their behalf. Knowledge. So knowledge, we'll talk about two types of knowledge. Knowledge is kind of important here. First type of knowledge base is an internal knowledge base. It's a knowledge base that's created, used, and consumed by IT support staff and technology themselves to support the customers, support the business. They need to know how to handle issues specific to the organization, as well as triage, escalate, and all the other things that go into resolving an issue in a timely manner. The other piece that's kind of important to this conversation is, employee attrition. As we have this turnstile of comers and goers, and joiners and leavers, we don't want that information leaving, right? This is very proprietary stuff. We want to make sure that IT is building these knowledge articles to support new hires, as well as ongoing business as usual. Second type of knowledge base is for the employee facing, going back to that Amazon portal we talked about. A user, imagine a Google-like search on the portal where I can search for tips and tricks, best practices, how-tos. Maybe there's some kind of error in our organization that we understand how a user can immediately resolve it. Again, time to resolution is super key in employee happiness and experience. So this is a great way to kind of have a level zero sort of user experience where they didn't have to run after IT or create issues. They can actually resolve certain low-hanging fruit themselves. So it can be very impactful, and again, another great way to show how IT works in your organization. IT assets, so in an instant, we need to know who's assigned to what device, who's in possession of what. So a lot of this has to, has to do around audit and compliance, of course, but as well as tracking, procuring new devices, knowing what's in stock, who's in possession of, what needs to be returned, what's end of life, and what's potentially a risk to my organization. Tracking assets and devices we care about, very important sort of function. So that's kind of asset management. And actually at this point, we have another poll for you. Let Skylar bring that up.
Thanks, George. Yeah, here's the next poll for everyone.
Okay. So this one's asking if there is a current platform that you use to track IT requests, issues, or ITSM. Let us know what that is.
I still see a few responses coming in, so I'll give it about 15 more seconds or so. And just to everyone know, there is an other at the bottom. If you scroll down, if you don't use any of those, you can see the bottom. There's an other option.
Thank you for that.
No problem. Okay, I will end the poll and share the results for you.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, other was probably what most of us would expect. All right, cool. Thanks for sharing that. So what is the journey here? So what is it? How do we get there? So what does that look like for most organizations? So most organizations, we start out in this kind of reactive, little no process, very ad hoc, unpredictable sort of state. And that's kind of, our first stage. We grow into, more organized. We start to define processes. We move into a state of efficiency and an efficient sort of uh, vertical. And then as more processes are introduced and adopted, keyword being adopted here, we start moving into a proactive stage. This is where we see most efficiencies, and we start going down that path of automation. Obviously, self-service, super key area. This at a minimum is where that employee experience starts to be realized. It's where we have a service portal, and end users, your employees, start really engaging with IT in an optimal fashion. Next stage is aligned, aligning closely with the business to deliver predictable outcomes. It could be SLAs, OLAs, more mature automations to get things resolved quicker, and also delivery of goods fulfilled quicker with automation. And then finally, we get to that strategic stage. We grow and mature into that, driving strategic innovation to the business. So, again, at minimum, we start, or where we start seeing value for this particular topic is that proactive stage. Okay, so we have another poll.
Yep, sounds great. So the next one is going up now.
Okay. So questions around employees. How do they contact your IT support today?
Still looks like we have quite a few answers coming in, so I'll give it just about 20 more seconds. Okay, I'll end the poll, and here are the results.
Yeah, email is what we see a lot, and phone. It's very common. Cool. Very cool. Okay. So just a little bit about A and B, as Tian touched on a little earlier. Again, we are A&B technology provides outcomes, for your ITSM journey. We do asset assessments and roadmaps, implementation, managed support, training, and organizational readiness. And hopefully we're here to service. And so again, just another reminder for the first 7 people that do contact us, we will love to talk to you and do a consultation and see how we can help, and hopefully get you on your way to a fantastic journey around ITSM. And that's it from us. We
Thank
to
you.
open it up to Q&A. Yeah.
There is one more poll. I'll run this last poll for everyone. And I'll give everyone about a minute or so to fill that one out.
So this one is to what George was explaining before, 5 steps or 5 stages of an ITSM maturity or journey map. So where do you see your organization currently? Level 1, ad hoc; 2, efficient; 3, proactive; 4, aligned or strategic.
Okay, perfect. I will end this now and share the results for you. Pretty actually evenly spaced on this one.
Well, I'm impressed. There are a lot of them in level 5 strategic. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Now we will move forward with the Q&A. So I'll start with some of the questions that we have in the chat that says, what role can ITSM play in helping companies bridge the gap between strategy and execution? And there's a second question, but I'll start with that one.
Sure, and maybe I can take that. So absolutely, ITSM can play a huge role, bridging the gap between strategy and execution. I'll give you an example. So again, I won't name the client for a few reasons, but this was a healthcare provider, and their strategy was how to, and this is pre-COVID, their strategy was to minimize the time their doctors and nurses were spending on talking to IT to resolve the issue. right, to resolve any IT related issues and portals and requests and whatnot, right? So the theme actually was let doctors and patients work with, let doctors and nurses work with patients and not with IT, right? That should be their focus. So that strategy or that goal was executed using IT service management, where we actually helped the client build a portal. We called it clinical portal, which was seamless and kind of click-through portal where nurses or doctors could simply request the things they needed from IT, whether it was reporting an issue or whether requesting something new on their fingertips. There was a mobile app, there was a service portal specifically designed for that user base. So definitely strategy and execution can all be enhanced and helped by ITSM. Actually, in all honesty, ITSM starts with service strategy. What is your strategy from defining those services? And then you execute it using, these different processes that George explained, from incident, change, problem management, knowledge, etc. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. And the part two is, can it also help improve collaboration and communications between employees and departments?
Definitely. Yeah. So again, I'll just give you an example. Let's take maybe an example of employee onboarding and employee offboarding, touching again the theme of today, right? The employee experience and how employees expect a great behavior. When it comes to employee onboarding, as you know, there are multiple steps, multiple teams involved. There is HR, there is IT, there is facilities, there is legal team involved, IT service management. With IT service management, or I should say enterprise service management, you can, number one, build a process where all these teams are together. And number two, you can use technologies with these different platforms that we were listing earlier to join these teams together. For example, we are working at this current client where their entire employee onboarding process is somewhat automated. As soon as the employee accepts the offer letter, their items that they will need on day one are already being prepared, whether it's a laptop, whether it's their AD account, whether it's their Outlook, whether it's the shared folder they need, whether it's their Zoom account they need, whether which place they were going to sit when they join the office, right? And that is very important in today's world. Believe it or not, most of the employees, they leave within 30 days based on the experience they see in the first 30 days. So that first 30, 60, 90 days experience is very important. And that's where ITSM, or I should say employee or enterprise service management, plays a huge, huge role. Right.
So another, yeah, just to kind of jump in, maybe another area of collaboration where ITSM is starting to play quite a bit, by the way, is integration into Teams channels, integration into Slack. So everyone's, when it gets down to collaboration, is integrating your ITSM tools and processes where employees can engage with your ITSM platform right from Teams, Microsoft Teams, Slack, a lot of these other types of chat tools, as well as IT staff themselves being able to swarm or kind of do a break fix session together on a Teams channel or a Slack channel where it's actually posting all the chatter of how we're resolving an issue back into a case, into an incident, or into another component of ITSM. So another way of engaging and kind of the outreach of collaboration, quick click, I need something, boom, everyone's used to chatting and kind of being able to log it at the same time to another area that we see a lot of growth. Teams, Slack, that sort of thing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question says, have you seen clients list office space as a service in the service catalog? And Victor said he can expand on that question if that question doesn't make sense.
I'm going to guess we're talking facilities management bit. So space management's huge, as if that's the area we're talking about.
Yes, I see a nod. Yes, so that's about right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's part of enterprise service management, facilities, Harjinder kind of touched on it, just from HR onboarding. Space management ties back to this, down to floor plans, those types of mappings. So the short answer is yes, it does tie in users in a, just starting with the IT onboarding, or I should say human capital onboarding. We need to know where they sit. So HR, IT in the middle, so kind of that, what is that Italian cookie thing or whatever? It's got three things, right? So we got HR, kicks off to IT and facilities as far as space management. We tie all of that together so that we know where we're going to drop a desktop or a laptop. We know who's sitting in what cube or in what space. Yeah, so it's a huge efficiency and perfect world when we get to a real mature stage. We have all three of those lines of business working seamlessly, and ITSM is that glue. Don't know if that answered that question, but we definitely see it.
Yeah, great. The next question says, our organization gave us the choice of full-time remote or twice a pay period. Almost everyone chooses full-time remote. Are other organizations doing the same?
Yeah, I didn't quite catch all of that. I'm sorry.
Would you like me to I can repeat it?
Yeah, can you just run through that?
So he's just saying that their organization gave them the choice of full-time remote or twice the pay period. I think that's where my concern or my question is with that. If that person who asked the question wants to maybe clarify that, that would be great. Oh, I see that. There's a clarification below. Or, okay, there's a clarification. Here we go. Our organization gave us the choice of full-time remote or coming into the building twice a pay period. Almost everyone chose full-time remote. Are other organizations doing the same? That's the question.
Gotcha. Yeah, so right now we're seeing mostly hybrid, and the clients that we're talking to, they are given that sort of experience. So be it whatever cadence to come into the office, be it twice a pay period or once a week. A lot of what we've seen so far has been kind of a 3 days on, 2 days off, is what I think a lot of companies are gunning for, to kind of ease that hybrid, but it depends, you know. Our gender.
Yeah, just to add there, yeah, George, you're absolutely right. That's what we are seeing. But again, it's very subjective to the industry you are in and your company's perspective, right? A lot of time, especially the startups, what we are seeing are more flexible. They don't care where you are, especially in the fintech world. But then there are other organizations, they want, hybrid model. So I think there is no clear theme, but majority of it is hybrid model. That's what we are seeing.
Yeah, and very function based, right? So what do you do for the organization is a key driver in how most organizations trying to carve that area of, what the opportunity is for the employee.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question says, how effectively would ITSM support an OKR or MBO process?
Sure. So again, for those of you who are familiar with OKR, that's great. If not, so OKR is objective and key results, right? So typically these are done at the strategic level. At the C level, they define that for this year, our strategy is XYZ, right? And then you start measuring them against your tactical processes. And typically your OKR will not be, I'm going to implement ITSM. No, your OKR will be, I'm going to digitize my user experience within the company, right? Now that's your objective. Now, how you implement that? One of the aspects will be IT service management. Now, can you measure OKR with IT service management? Not really. But there are specific, OKR itself is a specific function, right? But there are applications that you can use to manage it. But certainly IT service management supports a lot of OKRs depending on what your organization's objective is, right? So it's not one-to-one relationship between OKR and IT service management.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question says, do you ever give pushback to a client about a request that they would actually make employee experience worse?
That never happens. That's a great question. So yeah, I mean, this goes to almost everything. We always identify where the friction is. I mean, one of the key deliverables is figuring out friction process. So that's usually defined up front. If a customer is adamant about it has to be a certain way, then it is their tools, it is their organization. There's only so much we can do, but we do raise the risk, and it's part of the discovery phase and stage, and kind of working with the stakeholders. It's a kind of a loaded question. There's only so much we can push back on, right? As consultants, but yeah, it is red flags and asterisks everywhere, for sure. It happens.
Definitely.
Well, you've been through it. If you asked a question, you must have been through it. So at some point, right? We all live this stuff. I know it's not a perfect world yet.
Okay. Next question says, what does a typical ITSM project take to implement from timing and scope standpoint?
Mr. Singh, I'll leave that one for you.
Sure. Yeah. So again, that's a great question. There are multiple factors when it comes to defining and implementing your IT service management journey. Like George was saying, to reach level 3 is where you will gonna actually reap benefits from employee experience perspective. Typically, I would say from 0 to level 3, it takes maybe a year or so. But from level 1 to level 2, you can easily strive for that within a couple of months, right? And that includes defining your processes. And again, you don't need to boil the ocean by defining every single process. Start with focusing on incident, for example. You want to have a process into how your IT resolve issues, right? That process needs to be clearly defined so that when, in case of an issue, everyone knows what to do, right? So that process is pretty straightforward, simple enough to implement and adopt. The second is the request. How do people request? And when they request, how will the fulfillment happen at the back end? Who will going to do it? Whether it's IT server team, network team, messaging team, facilities team, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say start with issue resolution process, which is incident, with the request process, how do people request, and then knowledge. If you start with these 3 and improve upon that and make sure they are well adopted, right? It's all about people, process, and platform. You define your processes, you make sure you have a platform that enables those processes, and make sure your people are ready with it, right? And it's not just a matter of training, make sure their roles are aligned with those processes so that they can clearly perform those responsibilities, right? So give or take 2 to 3 months, but there are multiple factors that could change the game.
Right. So usually a net new client, 2 to 3 months to kind of get to that point, provided they're engaged and they're working with us, and that we can have timely cadence with them to do all the discovery and resolve any issues that might come up. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. So the next question says, regarding IT assets, what type of assets do most companies track? Do companies track servers and network devices, or just desktops and laptops?
So it normally starts desktops and laptops for sure. Desktops and laptops have the most churn and the most life cycle of a provision, deprovision in the day-to-day. A lot of organizations repurpose laptops, desktops, and those types of devices. So it always starts there, and then it should go into potentially more consumables, which could be inventory management, monitors, keyboards, headsets, printers. Sometimes printers are an asset. Depends on how you want to define it and what your dollar amount is and how you track your assets. But servers, network gear, the infrastructure stuff, Absolutely, a more mature organization is going to want to do that. It all ties back to change control, change management, understanding risk, and part of ITSM is kind of has two faces. From an ITSM component is people, all the users requests, all the work that IT does to fulfill the user's needs and to make stuff happen. And then on the other side of it is all device management, asset management, CMDB, which we didn't talk about, configuration management, database stuff, and interconnects of how compute relates to the work we're doing, right? So as we get to a more really mature state, we want to start driving different KPIs and metrics around what devices or what systems or what business services, what business applications would it cost the organization to run and how problematic it may or may not be, right? So all those things start tying together. Short answer is yes, we want to do asset management for everything, but it's every organization generally starts laptop, desktop, client-side devices, and then they move their way into the infrastructure or back-end side of the house, and then potentially software asset management as well, understanding software costs, software licensing, contracts, end of life, end of warranty, all that fun stuff is also part of ITSM as an extension to an asset or something that we consume from the business.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. How would our remote employees access an ITSM solution from outside the office?
Good question. So if I'll take a stab at that maybe. So an external. So I would say that there's a lot of ITSM solutions that are cloud-based, and I think the short answer is that if you're looking for an ITSM solution, it should be in the cloud, especially now that we know that hybrid is here to stay, and it's kind of the majority of where organizations are going. That means I need to be able to do all the things we talked about internally and externally with no friction. So if I'm not VPNing into my organization to go hit that ITSM server somewhere, I need to make sure it's available in the cloud. So cloud is the answer. Or if your organization has an always on VPN or something where someone on the laptop is always routing into my data center, get more complex there. Cloud's the short answer, where I can go in, can go out. I can reach you anywhere, bus stop to airport, from the back of a taxi cab to in the office. I think that's the answer.
Okay, the next question says, how would an IT tech get notified of an issue, especially if the tech is mobile?
So IT tech, so notifications, so a couple of ways. I'm just thinking of my previous life. So when I was getting pinged left, right, center. So a lot of it has to do with, again, an ITSM solution that has a mobile app, a mobile capability. I want to make sure that I get push notes on my phone. So if someone's on call, at 2 a.m, they get woken up, they can actually interact with the phone to log comments or resolve tickets or acknowledge tickets or let the organization know things are being worked on. So a mobile app would be one way. Emails is old school, but it's still doing, people still do it. And I also mentioned earlier before, we're seeing a lot of integration around collaboration tools, specifically Slack and Microsoft Teams. So once again, if I have Teams or Slack on my phone, I could have my notifications and I can start working tickets right from my phone via those sorts of channels. So those are some ways that IT stays always on, always connected in and out of the office.
Okay, great. The last question that we have, and if anyone has any more before we end, feel free to ask any last minute ones in the chat. But this last one says, what KPIs would a company just starting out with ITSM find most valuable?
It's a good one. So starting out with, I think a lot of it, really it's measuring your incidents. It's starting there. Issue response is usually a sign of maturity or lack thereof. So kind of goes back to a lot of the stuff I talked about with having a strong knowledge base. We see a lot. We see a lot in IT organizations that the staff isn't well trained up, or they're having to reach out and escalate things when they should have handled it at their level. So a good KPI is to understand how many hops and tickets, kind of moving, right? So if I need to keep moving stuff to other teams and other individuals, that means that there's potentially a knowledge gap that we need to address as an easy sort of low-hanging fruit that we should address relatively quickly. It's just one of probably many. I don't know if our gender, some quick thoughts on KPIs.
Yeah, the other thing I could add is, depending on, again, which processes you're trying to tackle, change is a huge one, right? Most of the issues happen when something gets changed, right? So measuring which changes impacted your organization, and then making sure if there is a theme, then you do the root cause analysis to make sure that doesn't happen again, right? So the KPIs around change management are also key. The other is, how often was knowledge actually used to resolve an issue, right? That means your knowledge base is helpful, right? So instead of creating a ticket, somebody went to a knowledge base and actually never created a ticket. That's also the experience that you're looking, it's almost like self-service. You go to different shop nowadays and they have the self-pay option. You don't even need to go to the cashier. So you should measure that capability also as part of your KPIs, that how is your self-serving service capability working.
Great, thanks so much. I think we've hit the end of the questions. So Harjinder and George, thank you so much for the masterclass today. If anyone has any more questions that they'd like to ask, feel free to stay on after, and we can answer them in the last couple of minutes that we have, but otherwise we can close the meeting, and thank everyone for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys so much.